I thought everybody lived like that at the time, but we didn't wear shoes. We ran in the bush, amongst where all the snakes and everything is. It was very normal to see, a cobra or whatever snake, and you just keep going, avoid it, move on, maybe have a little with your pellet gun and then run. It was really fun. It was hell of adventurous.
Welcome to Legacy Conversations, recorded right here at the barn on Collimer Road. I'm your host, Mark Modulewski. Our mission, to educate, inspire, and entertain. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get started. Well, okay, ready?
I'm ready.
Andy Buchanan, welcome to Legacy Conversations. Thanks for being here, buddy.
Pleasure, Mark. I came a long way to be here.
You certainly did.
How many hundreds of miles? I don't know, thousands of miles.
Thousands of miles.
Yeah, but it wasn't only for the podcast. But
no,
it's a pleasure to be with you, buddy. Always nice to chat to you. And
no doubt. No, it's awesome. I'm so excited that you came. I've been thinking about it for a long time, ever since we started doing this podcast. And when I met you, I'm like, man, I hope one day someone like Andy Buchanan could be on the podcast.
It's pretty cool. I have a little podcast of my own, so
yeah,
podcasting a podcaster.
I know, It's kind of fun.
Very cool.
Well, let's give some folks some background. So probably 3 years ago-ish, somewhere around there, some of the people who know me know that I love to waste time educating myself on YouTube, spend a lot of time on YouTube videos, and I saw your TV show, and I reached out to you, and that's how we originally met. But why don't you tell us a little bit about like who you are, where you're from, what you do? Because even though to me you're a celebrity, tell me a little bit about Andy.
So I was born and raised in rural Zimbabwe, which is in southern Africa, which might be surprising by my appearance.
Yes,
but it was a fantastic upbringing, and I spent a lot of time in the wilds. And it was just a happy place, as it is for many of us hunters, regardless of where we live. And we grew up hunting and fishing and trapping. And as you know, you've been over to Africa a few times. There's a lot of different animals and there's a lot of wildlife. So, just got into the whole rhythm of being in the wild was always what I loved to do. And then I followed that throughout my life, and when school ended, there's nothing better I could have thought of doing than going into the wilds and making a life. Just kind of followed my heart, and then I ended up starting my professional hunter's license in Tanzania, and then by coincidence I got into filming.
Yeah.
Which is a long story in its own. And eventually that took me to producing a TV show, This is Africa, which everyone knows me from. And it's just kind of moved and shaked from there. And now we're today I'm doing a podcast. I do, you're doing a few writing of books, which you've actually helped me with.
Yeah. And
the TV show and conservation efforts. There's a lot of different things on the go, but pretty much just a wildlife fanatic and conservation orientated human, I'd say.
Yeah. So if I was to describe you, for the folks who have never met you, you are passionate about the bush or the wilderness. You're passionate about conservation and hunting. You love being outdoors. You have this unique, amazing personality to make people feel comfortable, right? People you've got an attractive personality. People want to be friends with you. So you grew up in rural Zimbabwe. The capital of Zimbabwe is Harare, which is where you and I went a couple of times. That's where you live currently.
Yes. Yeah.
And you're over in the States promoting basically three things that you do. You have this TV show, which is amazing. And if people haven't seen it, you should go check it out. It's on the Sportsman's Channel. Generally January, February, and March. It's called This is Africa.
Yep.
And you can also find all the back episodes on My Outdoor TV, as well as your YouTube channel, which is extraordinarily popular, which is cool. The other thing that you do is you're a professional booking agent. So folks who have always wanted to come to Africa, and if they wanted to hunt, or if they want to do a combination of a hunt and some sort of tour, whether it's photo safari or see Victoria Falls or go to the beaches in Mozambique, you can help organize and set that up for them.
Correct.
And the last part is you're a production professional, right? You build videos and you build media, and you will go with somebody like me. This is when you know it's a real podcast.
That's when you know you have a real business, is when people phone you all the time.
When people phone you in the middle of the
on New Year's Day.
Yes, on the thing. But you build these videos for people. So you came on, Amy and I, you set up our initial safari, and you came and videoed it for us, and then gave us this hour-long video that chronicled what we did, which was so amazing. So it's like this little nutshell, but you do so much.
Yes, yeah, I do. I love to do new things, and I very easily create ideas in my head. I'm one of those people that my head is very creative, and ideas come, and so I have no problem making new things and new ideas and whatever, but implementing them sometimes.
The execution time.
The execution is, especially when you try to be a one-man team. But I'm getting better at it. A lot of that actually has been through yourself. Like you said, we met probably 3 years ago or something. But since then, you've helped me to, what's the word? Build a system is the word you always use.
Yeah.
Build a system of how to do all these things and get things done, and not neglect one when starting another. So yeah, it's been quite helpful meeting you.
Yeah.
It was a little confusing before then, I must say.
Made your head spin a little bit on the
It
back
did,
of a
it did,
cruiser.
it is. But it's all very more calm now.
Yeah.
And also my new partner, Carly, has helped a lot, I think.
Yeah, she's great. We'll talk about her in a little bit too,
Alrighty.
which is cool. So, so growing up in Harare, so I grew up in Connecticut, right? Small state, Northeast. You grew up in rural Zimbabwe. What's it like? What's a day in the life of a kid growing up in rural Zimbabwe?
Oh, it was amazing. And I mean, I thought everybody lived like that at the time, but we didn't wear shoes. We ran in the bush, amongst, where all the snakes and everything is. It was very normal to see, a cobra or whatever snake, and you just keep going, avoid it, move on, maybe have a little with your pellet gun and then run. It was really fun. It was hell of adventurous. And I was very lucky. My father used to let us stay in the villages, and I used to stay there for a week or two on end. Sometimes they didn't even know where I was, but they would just ask some of the farm workers, where are they? And they said, no, they're there, or they with the local kids.
Explain a village for me. What's a village?
So like little huts made out of grass, a thatch, or what we call thatch, but very traditionally made out of mud, cow manure, packed with sticks. Sticks make the frame, and then you pack it with cow manure and mud. And it eventually makes a nice smooth wall, rounded sort of hut. We call them huts, or what do we call a rondavel, maybe another word.
Yeah.
And a village would be made up of numerous of those. Different families will have their own, like each family has a couple of huts, where my husband and wife stay there. Maybe the oldest son has his own hut there, and then grandmother has her hut there, and then that makes up sort of one small village. And then maybe 50 yards away, like a space in the bush or whatever, just some open ground, and then the next sort of family, almost like you would housing complex, have your different houses.
Yeah,
it's like that, but with little rondavels making one house as such.
So for us, I'd say, well, you grew up in the country, but the country was different because you were a white family, right? Yeah. And these little villages that you were talking about were native black people.
Well, they were the people that were working on our farm. So, they were, the fathers were tractor drivers or combine harvester drivers or cattle guys, or there were so many jobs on the farm, and there was like little school and clinic and butchery and all the store. My mum ran the store. So my friends growing up were the kids in so that village we basically called a compound. And then it was, the higher paid workers, the more senior workers had, had
Proper
more
houses.
money. Yeah, so they had like proper houses and all that. I used to mainly stay at my maid. So my maid was like when my mum was out working, doing the store or the books, or she had some plants that she grew, dipladenias. She had a big plantation of those that she grew and sold. And my dad was out on the farm. There's obviously we need people to look after us, So we had the maid. When we had home, she looked after us, and then when we went outside of the homestead into the bush or onto the farmlands, we had another gentleman called Morgan who used to go with us, and he was sort of like a little like a tracker / play football with us, and then. But when we went into the compound, we'd stay mainly at my maid's house, and her son's name was Blessing, and he was my brother and I's really good friend. So Blessing, he was our best friend in the compound or the village as such, Blessing was our best friend basically, and we would just go out into the bush, and we had pellet guns and 22s and
boys being boys.
Yeah, and we would, and the locals taught us traps and where to find certain things, and it was cool. And we taught them how to shoot our guns, and we used to do some illegal things. Our dad was very strict about what you can and can't do, and like there's a type of tree that you could cut and collect the sap and cook it on a fire, and it became really sticky. And you wrap that on a branch, and then you could go and put it in a tree or by the water hole or whatever. And anything that lands on there, any bird is stuck. Yeah. But it was highly illegal. And it used to stick to you and your clothes. So, sometimes we used to actually throw our shirts away, because if we went home with it, my dad would...
What are you doing?
See, and we'd set traps, and which we weren't supposed to. But it was hell of adventurous.
Just fun.
Yeah, and I think when you grow up like that, you keep seeking that adventure, and you seek more adventure, and it's hard to replace.
So you have a couple brothers and a sister.
2 brothers and a sister.
Yeah, and 2 brothers are in Africa. Your sister's in the States.
Yes. So my eldest brother Raymond, he's 10 years older than me. He also films hunting safaris, mainly does productions of his own, Rustic Hunter Productions, and then my other brother he was an ex-Royal Marine, so he's a sort of special forces type of guy, and he's actually just got the head of the anti-poaching for a national park with Africa Parks,
which is amazing.
It's a really good position in the conservation world.
Yeah.
We're very excited.
Anti-poaching here in a minute.
We're excited about
cool.
that.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah. Awesome. And then I've got my sister who lives here in America.
Yeah, lives in America, which is cool. So you're growing up like a country boy in the States, except you're in Africa. You're on a farm. You have the workers on the farm. They live in a little community on the side. You grew right alongside those folks. And then the way you were schooled is different than we're schooled here in the USA. Tell me about like your elementary school and your high school days. Like what's that like?
So school, I remember, we started, obviously there's like what we call preschool, which is like
preschool, kindergarten type
stuff.
Yeah,
kindergarten. Yeah. And I remember my first day of kindergarten, I got word from the workers that my mum was looking for me, because it was time to go to school. But I'd left home earlier, and I'd gone and found Blessing, and we were digging field mice out of the lands where the crops had been newly harvested, and that was a lot of fun to dig those mice out and catch them and keep them and whatever. And I got word that we had to go to kindergarten, so that kind of I was like, oh no, first day of school, like no, I don't really want to go. I don't want to go. So that was kindergarten, and then but kindergarten wasn't far. I think it was a little farm community kindergarten. It was like 3 hours, not even, probably an hour and a half away. But school was further. School was maybe 2 hours away, whatever, junior school. And that was boarding school. So it was, I suppose, quite colonial, I suppose, but still, Zimbabwe is still very boarding school orientated. There are town schools, but I don't know, the town school seems to have less discipline and
Sure.
I don't know, there's something very, very nice about going to boarding school, sleeping next to your friends, playing sports with your friends every day. Sports are compulsory. But yeah, so when we went into grade 1, it was weekly boarding. So you do 1 week and then you go home for the weekend. And then as soon as you get into grade 3, then you start doing what we called full boarding, which was 3 weeks. So you stay at school for 3 weeks, then you come home for a weekend, 3 weeks, weekend. And then you got 2 what we call floatings, which were like you could use them at any time to go home during a weekend if you didn't have sports. And obviously sports was compulsory. But I remember my mother actually came to pick me up from junior school once on a weekend for a floating, which I didn't know about. She just thought that we'd want to go home, and we actually told her we don't want to come home. And shame she'd driven 3 hours to get there. And we told her we don't want to come home because we're going to play in the woods with all our friends, you know. Right. And so that was the junior school. And then senior school was a little more... our junior school was awesome. We didn't wear that shoes that often. I mean, all the sports and running and everything was played without... Going to school, to class, you had to wear shoes and socks, and it was all very... Uniform, yeah. But senior school was a little bit more serious, you know. That came with that sort of hierarchy of seniors and all this stuff, which was interesting. I can't say I loved it. There was just such a strictness about the senior school, which I didn't really enjoy. But it seems to have gotten better now. I mean, a lot of the rules. I mean, we had to learn. When we went into the first year of senior school, we had to learn all the seniors' surnames in the 6th form and the 5th form. So what's that? The graduators and the undergraduators or whatever. Yep. We had to learn all of them. And that was like 400 and something kids. We had to know their surnames off by heart, and we had to greet them. Lift our hat, afternoon, Mr. And when Buchanan, you go, and my memory was not on sharp for 400 names. I struggled to remember names. Faces, no problem. But yeah, but then once you got past the first year and the second year, then you became a senior. Then it was really nice because everyone runs around you and does exactly what you say and all that jazz. So senior school
like a rite of passage.
It is, yeah. And you actually have this, like, if you're in the senior dorm, if you're the senior year, you have a youngster who's in the second year that does everything for you. Yeah, it was called a squack.
Squack.
So the little one was called the squack, and the big one would be the squack master. So who's your squack master? Who's your squack? And then your squack master. I mean, that also depended how your life was going to be, because if you had a horrible squack master, your everyday life was tough. But if you had a nice squack master, then it was.
How was yours?
My first one was horrendous. I think he was schizophrenic or something, because he'd be my best friend once, and then 10 minutes later he actually once told me, go and cut 6 canes. So I thought, he's obviously going to beat someone. So I went and cut the most amazing canes, one thick, like out of bamboo poles. One thick, one thin, one medium, and it turned out the canes were for me.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and he beat me in front of like a lot of people. It was really embarrassing more than anything. And then one of the other seniors saw this and said, let's swap, because I don't like my squack, and you clearly don't like yours either. Beating the hell out of him.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So we swapped. And then he was great. He was a lovely squack master. They're actually still a friend of mine to this day. I see him.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was interesting. It's changed a lot since then.
I'm sure. Like anything else.
Yeah, and I mean the generations for me was different. You know.
Yeah.
It's getting easier and easier for kids, I think.
When I was a kid, I remember being in elementary school, not paying attention, not doing what I'm supposed to, and my teacher would come up. We'd have those desks where you put all your stuff underneath the desk, and mine was always messy. And she would come up behind it, and she'd lift the desk up and pour the desk out all on top of me. It would land on my lap and go all everywhere. And then she'd put it down, and she'd say, pay attention. And then you had the rest of the class, you would sit there with your stuff all over. And then when everybody went out to recess, then you had to stay in and pick up your desk.
Yeah. Embarrassing more than anything.
Exactly. You couldn't do that today.
No.
Right? That would just not happen.
No. I mean, it was crazy. Yeah. I mean, things that... We had one teacher that used to throw the You know that thing that we had chalkboards, eh?
Yeah,
No, there was no like blackboards back then. It was,
They throw the eraser.
that duster.
Yeah.
We used to call it the chalk duster. And it was like a little brick, you know, she would throw that thing at you. It was embarrassing. And if it hit you, full of chalk dust, eh? Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Fun times.
So, growing up on this farm, getting really into the bush, going away for boarding school, you guys were more on trimesters, right? So you were in school a bunch, but you'd have a month off here and a month off here. It's not like in the U.S. where you go to school from August, September through June, and then you're off for a couple of months. You have some time off. And then you graduate, you finish school, you finish high school, and then what happens?
Well, you know, most people go to university and this and that. At the time, we weren't really in a financial position to go to university.
Mom and dad.
Well, yeah, my father had passed away when I was 5 years old. So it was just my mother, and she was a teacher, and we all know how those salaries go. So there was no real choice for that.
Yeah.
So it was like my mum's suggestion was go to England and start working, you know, to find something to do and crack on.
Yeah.
Obviously, being the last child, my mum was like, it's very
I'm
doable.
done.
All my kids have done it. You can do it as well. But I didn't want to go to England because I'd always had this idea of going back to the bush. Because at this point, we were now living in Cape Town. We'd moved when I was about 15. We moved from Zimbabwe just because things had gotten tough there. So we moved to Cape Town and then finished school in Cape Town. And like all my friends were going to uni. And, you know, the thing I really wanted to do then was I wanted to go and do a guiding course, like a photographic guiding course to be a wildlife guide.
Yeah.
But that also cost a lot of money. So that was not an option. But then I can't remember exactly how it all worked. I think my oldest brother's wife had met someone in Tanzania. And I'd always wanted to go to Tanzania because when I was younger, I'd been watching this hunting video, funnily enough, which I do now, of hunting in Tanzania, and it was wild. I was like, I can see that is like there. And one of my favorite things to see was these guys hunting sitatunga in the reeds. And for some reason, I've always been quite a water person. I used to love when I was a kid walking through the reeds on the side of the dam.
Yeah.
Because there was just so many birds and like pythons, and that's where all the animals sort of went for safety with bush pigs and things in there. It was like really exciting. So seeing these guys hunting this animal that seemed so amazing to me. It could, you know, Sitatunga can go underwater and just put its nostrils out of the water and breathe, you know, and he can submerge himself completely and eat grass under the water, which for an antelope is just fascinating. Right. So I always wanted to go to Tanzania, and so I said, well, Mum, maybe I'll go to Tanzania. And she said, well, it doesn't sound like a great plan to me, but if you want to do it, you know, the world is your oyster, son. You are finished school and your rent starts tomorrow, so make a plan. So, yeah, my mum bought me the ticket to go to Tanzania, as she did everyone, like to go to England or whatever. My uncle gave me $300 and as a loan, or as a gift, I think, but I did pay him back. And I went to Tanzania and I met the person that my brother's, actually met his partner. My brother's wife had told me, go and find this guy. And I went and I found the guy. But I found his partner. And then at the bar, at the Irish pub, and I said to him, so I'm here from Zimbabwe. Well, not from Zimbabwe, from South Africa. I'm originally from Zimbabwe. I was 18 at the time. I'm looking for a job in the bush. And he said, doing what? I said, anything. I just need to start. And it was great. He gave me a chance to get busy. And actually that year I spent 8 months in the bush without coming out. And I think the first 6 of those months was without any other white people. It was just me and the what we call the Vibaruas. Yeah, the guys you get from the village to open roads and build camps. And so I was supposedly in charge of these guys, but they were more like in charge of me because they were really good in the bush, like really good. And I mean, they were adults. They were men, and I was a boy, really. And yeah, I remember the one day I tried to tell one of them what to do, and he told me, little boy, I will wring your neck. Sorry. Sorry,
My bad.
Majaliwa. His name was Majaliwa. He was an amazing man. But he put me in my place very quickly, which was good, but I needed to learn, you know. And he actually refused to talk to me for the first couple of months. He wouldn't talk to me unless I spoke with him in Swahili, his local language. Mm-hmm. So when I eventually learned Swahili, I gained his complete respect, and then him and I became really good friends. Yeah, he was a monster guy. He was a good guy to have as your friend.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
So I think one of the things that's pretty interesting for the folks who are listening or watching is so different. So mom cares about you, loves you. Mm-hmm. You get through with school. Mm-hmm. She buys you a $40, $50 ticket to Tanzania.
Oh, it was more than
a couple
that.
$100, whatever it is, right? Yeah. And the plan is go find this guy.
Yeah,
right? So
yeah, or find someone, or find something.
Right, but she basically put her baby, the youngest, on a train.
Plane, yeah.
On a plane.
Yeah.
You land in Tanzania, and it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Figure it out. Go find somebody.
Yeah, it was hell of exciting because I had my own job at this point. I'd started waitering at restaurants when I was probably 15.
Yeah.
Which was fantastic. I loved it. I had my own money. I was independent. I could do my thing. So I saved up for this trip, obviously, and I bought myself a pair of binos. I remember they were like Nikons or something. They were terrible, but it was binos. And,
but I got gear.
Yeah, and I bought a sleeping bag, and I bought like this rucksack, and I bought like a tiny little tent. And it was like a survival kit.
Yeah.
On my back, and I was off to Tanzania. Oh, it was amazing. I got there, and I can't even remember, where did I stay? I don't even know where I stayed. I think I stayed in like a little B&B or... No. Yeah, I remember it was a B&B. It was hot. I remember when I first got to Tanzania, I remember thinking, "Ooh, it's hot here." And then the house I was in was there was these little like mosquito net gauze and like a mosquito coil going on the veranda, and it was hot, and there was the hustle and bustle of Dar es Salaam, you know. It was so exciting.
Yeah.
And it was nerve-wracking as well, you know, but I thought, I knew, like, this is my chance, here's the beginning of my dream, got to make it happen. And I had a few bucks in my pocket, which my uncle had lent, so I wasn't, like, too stressed about money for then. And then, it all worked out. I mean, the leads that my sister-in-law had given me, it all panned out. Yeah, it was...
So you got all this experience.
Very exciting.
And you were in the bush. When did you start working or being part of the hunting community? Was that in Tanzania?
Yeah, I started working with the photographic company.
Yep.
That also had a hunting side. They had a photographic and a hunting side. So I started with the photographic side. And the guy in charge of me was a British general, captain or something. He was a hectic drill sergeant guy, and he was strong, and he was intimidating, and he really pushed me. Not the way the army guys are different, eh? Mm-hmm. So yeah, he was hectic, but Anton Turner was his name, and I made some mistakes, and Anton let me know about them. But it wasn't. I didn't feel a part of the team really. Like I remember when clients eventually came into camp after my 8 months of building roads and camps and doing all this hard work. When it came time for dinner and there were actually clients in camp.
Yeah.
I didn't eat with the clients. I ate with the staff. And I ate what the staff ate. But he had promised me when clients start coming, I'm going to get nice food, and he didn't keep a lot of his promises, Anton. Mm. And he never said anything good, like you've done a good job or well done, or he never said anything like that. And it was like, sometimes, especially when you're just out of school, it's nice to hear, well done, you did something good, or like keep it up or something, but nothing. And eventually I started getting enough of it. And then one day I heard through the grapevine that he had told some worker that, this kid he's the right guy for the job. But he never told me that. And I ate like sadza or
ground corn.
ugali, which they call it in Tanzania, ugali, marage, and beans, like for 8 months. It was
just awful.
And I slept in my little 2-man tent that I had, and I had my own candle, which I used to reuse the wax and make my own wick and whatever.
Yeah.
It was hectic, and I just had like a thin mattress which I put in my backpack. I slept the whole year in that thing. So yeah, at the end of that year, I went to the other side of the company, who was the hunter, Ryan Wienand, and I said, Ryan, I don't want to be there anymore. And he said, no, but Anton told me he's really happy with you. And I said, yeah, but I'm not really happy with
Anton.
Yeah,
It's grinding.
Anton's not a nice guy. Anyway, he thought I was making the wrong decision, Ryan. He said, you don't want to go into the hunting industry. It's a dying industry and this and that. And I said, what ish? So that was my first year in Tanzania. And I stayed in Tanzania for 2 years. And in the off season, I'd be a landscaping contractor. My mother was a very good gardener, so I made my way into a landscaping business during the off season in Dar es Salaam, and I was the translator for the company. So I would tell all the workers what they need to do every day, and then make sure they do it and everything. So my Swahili skills, which I'd learned through Majaliwa, now came into effect to get me this job. And then eventually, I was. Somebody asked me for my visa. So I phoned my boss and I said, "Hey boss, where's my visa?" And he said, "You don't have a visa, buddy." So I'd been there for 2 years on a 1-month visa.
You've been there for 2 years on a 1-month visa.
Yeah, so now I was scratching my head thinking, how am I going to get out of this one? So I actually ran away from Tanzania. I got on a train and I skipped out. So that was, 18, 19, that was where the bush journeys began. So now the Tanzania's out of the question because they're
looking for you.
Yeah, I don't think they are, but you never know. It'll be interesting to see when I next go back if I get flagged.
Yeah,
but I doubt it.
No, I don't.
Anyway, you know how Africa is. There's always a back door.
Yeah.
So it was exciting, very exciting.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't do that year again. That first year was tough.
Yeah,
it was a hell of a tough.
To me before.
Yeah, it was difficult. When I came out of there, I had so little interaction with one thing you must realize, those guys who were in the village that I was staying with, the Vibaruas, they were very rural. Like when I say Africa rural, they were very rural. So I don't know, it was just difficult to interact with my sort of own kind in a crowd. You know what I mean? Like, everyone's sitting at a table and talking and shouting, and I was just way out of it.
Yeah. Because you weren't in Harare. You weren't in Cape Town.
Yeah.
You were in this little village and you don't fit in.
Yeah, I was in the Selous Game Reserve.
Right.
It was deepest. I mean, the Selous Game Reserve is 2.5 sizes of Kruger National Park, which is huge.
Yeah.
So it's massive. I think that the Selous is definitely one of the world's largest remaining wild places, and we were in the middle.
And the other part that's hard for us to understand, but you were unique. There wasn't a lot of white folks there. And the folks who were out there in those places, they had a different culture. They grew up differently than you did. 100%, right?
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it, but it was just strange coming out of it. And also I got malaria at the end, which I got it bad, and there was no medication in camp. And then when the medication came, my boss was not in camp anymore, so there was no one to really watch me, and I ended up taking all 3 days malaria medicine in 1 day. And I do think I was close to dying there, to be honest. It was bad. So when I came out of there and I went back to Cape Town, where all my, a lot of my friends and things were. So I went back for a holiday, and a lot of my friends said, "Where's this? You used to have a spark in your eyes. Where's it gone?" I was like, "Guys, I've been very sick." But it was really starting at the bottom. If you talk about starting in the industry, I mean, I didn't realize at the time. I thought a lot of people do go through it, but mine was quite extreme, I think.
Yeah.
But it stood me in good stead. I mean, there's not much you can throw at me these days that I can't handle in terms of roughing it.
Yeah. It's so amazing. It's such a great story. And I don't think a lot of people know that about you.
No, I think I think, one of the things with the TV show as well is because I'm the presenter and the producer and all that, I spend a lot of time telling other people's stories.
Yes.
So my story really hasn't been told that much. But also maybe that's also a little bit of intrigue there. I don't know.
Yeah.
People think where's this guy come from?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when did you move back from South Africa back to Zim?
Well, when I moved to Tanzania, I kind of moved there.
That was your home at the point.
Yeah, I mean, I still had a home. My mom's home in Cape Town. But Cape Town just wasn't for me. It was a bit too metropolitan.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody kind of look at judging on maybe what you wear or what you drive, and that kind of thing really grated me. So then, so when I ran from Tanzania on the train, I got back to Zimbabwe, and then a friend of mine, one of my father's friend's sons, had started a hunting company in Mozambique.
Okay.
So I went to work for him. His name is Grant Taylor.
Yeah.
And Grant was just starting out then. I mean, I don't know how many years ago. This is 15 years or more. But he was starting out in Tanzania, and he had a hunting area that wasn't great. There wasn't a lot of game, but he was doing anti-poaching, and he was trying to bring it back. And he had old vehicles, and the camp wasn't so sharp. But it was authentic hunting, tough hunting. So I went to work for Grant, and I, with my experience in Tanzania or whatever, he then had me managing camps, being an apprentice hunter, and just a jack of all trades basically, except for mechanics, because I was just terrible at that, which I still am. But and then so when I started working with Grant, It was a difficult situation at the time, I think, especially looking back in hindsight, because he was starting out. He was obviously trying to impress his clients and everything. So, I was pushing to start hunting. I wanted to start hunting guests.
Yes.
And, I was still young and mischievous. So I think, he just, either he wanted me to carry on managing the camps and things, or he didn't think I was ready.
Right.
Either one, but I
Probably
wasn't sure
both.
which. Probably both, yeah. So me being me, I was like, well, if I'm not getting what I want, I'm out. So I left Mozambique. But funny enough, Grant and I are actually starting to work again together this year, 15 years later.
Yeah.
And now he's got some of the best areas Mozambique has to offer.
Yeah.
It's just some incredible trophies and all that. So the circle
Full
turns.
circle.
Yeah, full circle. And then I went back to Zimbabwe. I thought, let me go home. And then I came back to Zimbabwe, and I'd actually filmed the hunt in Mozambique. One of the clients came out and bought a camera. And so I said, can I, because I was just intrigued by this.
Yeah.
And I thought, let me try, and then I would film for, her name was Rosa, from Brazil somewhere. And I would film, and then in the evening, I'd film her husband hunting, and Rosa would kind of make sure I'm just watch me. And then anyway, in the evening, I would go into the chalet, and Rosa and I should show me how to download everything, and then she'd go through my clips, and she was going through them, and she turned to me and she said, "You are quite good at this. Are you sure you haven't done it before?" I said, "No, I haven't." And she said, and you can see as a film person, now if I take one look at a youngster's stuff, I can see whether they have it or they don't have it.
Right.
It's the eye. And she obviously saw my eye. And she said, you've got a talent for this. And I said, well, I really enjoyed it. And she said, well, carry on, keep the camera and enjoy yourself. So then I filmed the whole hunt, but I didn't learn editing at that point. And then my oldest brother was actually coming back from England at that point, and he bought a bunch of cameras. So I borrowed one of his cameras, because he wanted to also get back into the safari industry,
Sure.
So I borrowed one of his cameras, and I think he actually set me up with my first year in Zim, filming for a gentleman by the name of Dirk Deploy in the Makuti area, which we hunted in. Yeah, but the other side of the road. And I filmed that whole year, and my brother was also another little drill sergeant. He said to me, I'll pay you, I can't remember what it was, I'll pay you $50 a day if you get all the kill shots for the whole safari. But if you miss one kill shot, you get $25 a day. Something like that. And let me tell you, I made sure I got all the kill shots.
Yeah.
And so I spent my first year doing that. I wasn't being paid by anyone except for if the client bought the thing, then my brother would give me a cut or whatever.
Yeah.
So I filmed the whole year like that. And then from the money I made that year, I gave my brother's camera back and I bought my own camera, much to my brother's dismay.
Yeah.
And then then I got in a position with Mr. Whittle, because at that point I'd done 4 years of apprenticeship, and I was like, I'm not going to go and do more apprenticeship in Zimbabwe, because then I would have to do another 4, because anything you do outside of Zimbabwe
doesn't
count for your Zimbabwean professional hunter's license, which is a silly rule, because
right.
There's great hunters that hunt in Tanzania and everywhere and have hunted for a long time that still can't hunt in Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
I mean, big names. Just because they haven't done their 4 years of apprenticeship, which is silly. But anyway, so now I decided in order to earn some money and try and carry on doing my apprenticeship, I would start filming. And then that was, then Mr. Whittle gave me a year. And then after that, I went up to the Nyasa in Mozambique and did a year there, or 2 years maybe. And by that time now, filming had taken, because my films already became popular at that point. I'd started my own YouTube channel, and it was just called Andy Buchanan, because I wanted somewhere to air my YouTube videos.
Yeah.
Not my YouTube, my clients' videos, because I hated producing a video and only one person saw it.
Exactly.
So I was like, how can I do this? Then I saw, there's this thing called YouTube, and it's for free, and you just put it up there. And slowly it started to build. That's pretty much
it's so cool.
the story. Crazy where life takes you. Hey,
it is.
I know it's not. I never thought I'd be doing this. Wow, hindsight maybe. Growing up, I watched a lot of documentaries. I loved it. Steve Irwin, his show was Crocodile Hunter back then. I loved that, and I just used to stay on National Geographic and Discovery
all the time.
So I think I learned a lot of things then already.
So we know a little bit about you.
Yes.
Right? I learned some stuff, which is cool.
Yeah, the backstory.
So you said, so how many languages do you speak?
I speak English, Afrikaans, Swahili. So my Swahili is probably a bit rusty now, but I can definitely still get by on it.
Yeah.
And so did I say English, Afrikaans, Swahili, and Shona?
Shona.
Yeah. And then there's one called Chalapalapa, but I don't know if you can call that a language. It's like a mixed, kind of like dialect, a bastardized sort of colonial.
So if you're in Zim, the vast majority of the bush folks speak Shona.
Yes. Right? Yeah. Pretty much everyone will be able to speak Shona. Yeah.
Right. And then and there's some English, obviously. Zim has a lot of
English.
English.
A lot of English. Most people speak English, yeah.
Yeah. And then when you get up to Tanzania and Kenya, there's a lot of Swahili.
East Africa, Rwanda, Uganda.
Yeah, all of
Tanzania,
those.
Or Kenya,
all those things.
Yeah.
And then South Africa has a lot of English.
A lot of English.
But there's some Swahili. There's Afrikaans.
No, there's no Swahili in South Africa.
All Afrikaans.
Afrikaans, English, Xhosa, Zulu. I think South Africa has 11 official languages.
Yeah.
But I mean, Zulu, Xhosa,
right.
English, and Afrikaans is kind of the 4 biggest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had spent some time. So I've been to Africa 5 times, 3 times with you, and twice before. And I remember our trip to South Africa, which was probably the most modern. It was still Africa, but it reminded you a little bit of the U.S. Whereas when we went to Zim, or we went to Kenya or the tip of Tanzania, it was Africa. It wasn't. It was not New York City or Atlanta or Syracuse. It was different.
There's a difference for sure.
Big difference. Yeah. So I wanted to talk before we get into these things. I wanted to give people a little bit of background. So in Africa, Africa's got, especially Southern Africa and Eastern Africa, there's a huge industry of tourism, right? It's one of the biggest draws from around the world. People go to Africa for its game. Right?
Yes.
It's just absolutely gorgeous.
100%.
The animals are just amazing, right?
Yeah.
So there's this photographic safari type piece where you can go and sit on a Land Cruiser and go to a park or go to the wild, and you can see some of these things. And there's also this hunting safari.
Yes.
And sometimes that's a little challenging because people don't understand that part, and we're going to get into that here in a second.
Sure.
But to be a guide in Africa, you should have a license, depending on which country.
Yes.
We're going to talk a little bit about Zim here for a second. And there's some things you need to do, right? You have to say, I want to do it. I've got to pass some written tests. I have an oral test.
Yeah.
I've got a practical test. I've got some apprenticeship. So I got to kind of do it for a while and make sure you can do it. Because if they're going to send you out into the bush with me and my wife, and there's lions and elephants, it's like that guy or gal needs to know what they're doing, right?
100%.
You're not just walking around like where we are in the Adirondacks, where it's like, just don't get lost.
Yeah.
Right? There's really nothing there that's going to hurt you, right? So you go through this whole thing, and then you can become a professional, and there's different levels of those licenses, right? Help me understand, what are the different levels of those licenses?
So Zimbabwe is actually the most stringent guide or professional hunter syllabuses, or whatever you want to call it, processes. It takes 3 to 4 years. I know some guys who took 9 years. It's stage 1 is your learner's license. You have to pass your written tests. So after all these years of me, and I've obviously gone on a stringent with my filming and whatever, I've always still wanted to get my professional hunter's license, which is what I wanted in the beginning.
Right.
So I've actually just written my learner's hunter's license. So your learner hunter license, and being in that hall, I think there was 350 people. I know I was the guy with the most experience in that hall.
Sure.
Which was... It's taken me way too long. Anyway, so, but that is the hurdle that a lot of guys get stuck on, that first hurdle, because it's a lot of learning. I mean, my stack of books is like this.
Well, it's academic, right?
It's academic, and it's remembering, and it's law, and it's Latin names, and a lot of us bush kids are not classroom wizards.
Yes.
So
but if you think about it, so you're taking this test that's asking you to identify birds,
grasses,
trees, what's edible, what's not edible, what's dangerous, what's not dangerous. So
politics. I mean, it doesn't just sit at wildlife. You got to know like general knowledge. You got to know ballistics. You got to know all your ballistic stuff. You got to know habits and habitats of the game. Latin. It's just. There's a lot of, it's actually broken into 4 things. It's ballistics, habits and habitats, your general paper, which is a son of a gun. And what's the last one? Habits and habitats. I've already forgotten.
We need Jody here.
Anyway, I passed it.
Yeah.
Praise the Lord.
It's amazing.
And you have to get 60% and above for all 4.
Yep.
So that's the first hurdle. You do your written. And then after that, you go now and you do your shooting test.
Yes.
Which should be possible if you've been shooting for long enough.
But it's not just so folks understand, you need the shooting test because you have to be able to protect yourself and the person that you're with, right? Because you are walking around where elephants and lions and leopards and buffalo and all those things are just wandering around. So even though you do your best not to put yourself in that position, on occasion
it's going to happen.
100%. And you need to be able to show proficiency to say, hey, listen, I can take care of this situation.
Yes.
So it's not like sit at a bench and find something there and pull the trigger and see if you do it, right?
No. You're running, it's timed. There's a lot of people watching you, so you're under pressure. They have charging objects. They have moving objects. And it's all with the weapon that you'd carry in the bush. So, you 375 and above, 416, 458. So it's not like you're just pinging away with a 22.
It's not like a 22.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's all timed. There's a lot of pressure, obviously. It's held twice a year, so if you fail now, you wait until the end of the year. Yeah, so you got to pass your shooting test, and then you got to do your oral test. But there's junctions between this. You don't just go from one to the other straight away.
Right.
And your oral test, it's a board of examiners, very experienced professional hunters.
So different
guides.
in the U.S. So you're sitting in front of a board of people.
Yeah, you're standing at attention.
So just imagine that for a second. In the U.S., I don't know of anything that does that, but there's a handful of men and women that are sitting in front of you.
All the biggies.
And all the guys who have
you got like
reputations.
Head of national parks. You got like big guys from national parks or the government department. Then you got all like the really experienced professional hunters. Then you got a bunch of guides, and they're all sitting there, and they put you under pressure, and they're grilling you. And they have there's a big table in front of you with skulls and skins and bullets and a lot of things, from mice to elephant things.
And they want to know.
And bats and
they want to know that you know your stuff.
Yeah. And there's no way of pulling the wool over those guys' eyes, because they know everything about,
Right. You're not talking your way through it.
What's the saying? They're trying to forget things you're trying to learn. Yeah.
Yeah. They've definitely forgotten more than we know.
Yeah. And it's also like, to try and test your confidence, because a lot of the guys who are doing this are younger, they're in their 20s, mid-20s, late 20s. So they need to know, these guys want to know that if they go hunting with Mark Modzelewski, who's a, financial institution, you deal with a lot of big money and things. You're a smart man, whatever. You can't be put with. You got to sit around the table and eat dinner and sit around the campfire and have conversation and all this stuff, Yeah. So as a nation of Zimbabwe, we want to uphold that quality of professional hunter. So they grill you, and that's a hard one as well. The oral test is, and they each get a go. And they ask you, what is this? Why is this done this? What happened to that? How did that die? And they might not even know why did that die, but they're going to ask you, why did that die? And then you think, oh, there must be a reason.
So you either make something up, or
so you start acting like you know how it died, and then they know that you're a bullshitter, and then you fail. So, so that's the second last.
Second last is the oral exam. So, excuse me. So you take this written test, which is kind of academic. Here's some books, figure this stuff out, make sure that happens. Then you have to make sure that you're confident and you've practiced enough with a weapon. And then you stand in front of a board of people who are very experienced, and they're asking you questions. So there is no A, B, C, D answer, right? There is no talk my way through this. You have to
and a lot of it is they're just sussing you out.
Yeah, they just want to make sure. Because like you said, what they're trying to do is, one is they're trying to take the folks who are spending their money to vacation in Zimbabwe, and they want those folks to have a good experience, and they want them to be safe. So the person that sits across the table from them at night, they want that person to be able to hold a conversation with them. If the person asks, what's that tree or what's that animal, they want them to be able to answer it. And then ultimately they want to make sure that they're safe, because if people aren't safe, then they don't come back. Right?
And they also ask questions like, what would you do if this scenario happened?
Yeah.
It's not just about what's on the table. They throw you with all sorts of oddballs. So that's a toughie. And then the last is the proficiency. So now you got to go out for a week. You have to build the camp. You have to provide the food. You have to provide the bedding. You have to provide the vehicle. Provide everything for the whole safari. And you have to. So you do it in groups. So you'll be like 5 or 6 of you, and then you. Between you decide how you're going to do this, and then you have examiners, 2 or 3 examiners in each camp as such, and then you have to go out and hunt an elephant and a buffalo. So often the professional hunter candidates will guide the hunt, and often the guides will be the hunter, the shooter. That because often they know that, having been in the hunting world, you've been in situations where you've had to shoot stuff, but a lot of the guides haven't had as much shooting experience as the hunters. But the guides just as importantly need to know how to shoot in case an animal attacks their group of 8 people, they need to sort that out. So they'd be judging on their shooting a lot of it. A lot of the learner guides will be very knowledgeable, like super knowledgeable on like their trees and their insects or whatever. So it's more to check what is
practical ability to get it done.
Exactly. And then your hunters now, you want to see, they want to be looking at to see how calm are you in certain situations, how good is your judgment. They'll tell you one 22-pound elephant, 22-pound tusks. So now you have to go and judge the ivory, you have to make your approach, you have to, and if you start approaching an elephant that's 30 pounds, and you're looking for a 20-pounder, they know this guy doesn't know his stuff. But at the same time, they're also asking you, what bird is that? What tree is that? How do these ants behave? What is all sorts of things. That's called your proficiency. And once you shoot the animal now, you have to skin it yourself. You have to do everything yourself. The cooking, the cleaning, the skinning, and one of the things they do is they try and deprive you of sleep, actually. Just to see how you handle yourself if you ever get into a situation where you got to go the extra mile or whatever to keep
anybody who's hunted has gotten to a position where they've been tired, cold or hot. Maybe they want something to drink that they haven't had in a while. They've been frustrated because of the people that they're with or how long it's happened. So in a perfect world, it's easy for people to go out and do it, right? If the wind is in your face and the sun is in their eyes and you have to walk up to it and it's great, a lot of people can do it. But if it's after 9 hours of walking in 110 degree heat with somebody that you don't get along with, you still have to be a professional and make good decisions.
Exactly. Yeah. So they test you. Yeah. And then once you finish that, they give you, you either pass with the A restriction, B restriction, C restriction. A restriction, you can't shoot elephants or you can't guide elephants. Elephants are probably Africa's most dangerous animal.
And people don't know that.
No. They think elephants are sleepy. And they can be. They can be docile. In national parks and whatever, because they're so used to seeing people, they're very relaxed. But whether they have been hunted or harassed by poachers or whatever, elephants are very, very different.
Scary animals.
They can seek to destroy.
Yeah, and there's nothing getting in their way. Like they'll just knock over a truck.
They're scary.
Just not
scary.
an issue.
And they're clever, and they're hard to bring down if you don't do it properly.
Yeah,
you got to hit the brain, otherwise it's not going anywhere.
So you get through this piece. You also have to have a bunch of experience to get your license.
Yes, right? That's why I say it takes over this period of all these exams. Now you're doing your apprenticeship, which is under a company of experienced men and women. And getting your apprenticeship done, your experience. And then you have a logbook that you have to log all the hunts you've been on, the experiences you've had, comments from your tutors, all that stuff. So all that stuff is examined during your proficiency.
Yeah, because at the end, they want to know that Andy has been on, a dozen impala hunts or a dozen buffalo hunts, and has been on lion, has been on leopard, and has been on that stuff. Because they don't want to send somebody out who, I call and I book and I say, I'd like to hunt a buffalo. And it's like, yeah, I've done one of those or two of those. It's like, well, that's not great. No. we don't want to do that.
No, they'll turn you away straight away. They see your logbook, it doesn't have enough in it. It's just an immediate fail.
Yeah.
And you can be failed for any reason by any examiner. It's not like it's a democratic vote whether you pass or not. If you
get 5 out of 6 votes,
you irritate one of them, you're out. But sorry, try again.
Yeah. So it's so interesting because I want to talk a little bit about the safari and the conservation efforts, but I wanted to give people the background, right? Because understanding one, you grew up in Zim. Went to school in Zim in South Africa, worked in Tanzania, worked in Mozambique, have spent the last more than a decade, following hunters around Namibia, Botswana, Zambia, Cameroon. You've been to places in Europe, you've been to places in America. Like you've been around this industry for a long time, right? And the TV show has been phenomenal and you've booked a lot of people into those things and there's so much more you want to do. But there's still people who believe if I'm going to visit Africa, one, I want to be safe. And two, I want to have an experience I want to design my own type of experience. That's something that you can do. But there's this idea behind why would I fly over there to hunt? So like in the U.S., in my opinion, there's there's three types of people. There's people who grew up with hunting and are okay with it. They understand it. It's approved by the government. You do it the legal way. It's good for the environment. It provides food, and it provides fiber, and it provides all of that type of stuff for people.
And money.
And there's money for it too, right?
That's one of the most important parts. Is
you go
financial
to
gain.
Right, you go to these rural places. Like if I go to a rural place in Wyoming, the only thing that goes through there a lot of times is a lot of the hunting industry.
Sure.
So in Africa, it's extraordinarily important that people come. They have tourism, right? People go on holiday, they go on vacation to go there, and they do photo safaris, they do hunting safaris. But in a nutshell, tell me this conservation story. So I go over there, right? And I've got friends who are like, Mark, I want to learn more. I've got friends who would say, I can't believe you go over there and shoot a buffalo.
Yeah.
And then I've got other friends who are like, man, I want to come with you, right?
Yeah.
So, and I try to explain to them what the conservation story is, but from a person who's been in the industry for a long time and grew up there, tell me about the conservation story. What does it do for the communities and for the countries? What would it do if it wasn't there?
What people don't realize is there's only in wilderness areas in Africa, there's only a handful of things that can be done there. One is rural settlement, which is like agriculture, basically small scale agriculture, but lots of people.
Yeah.
So, which there's no room for wildlife there, because of people and animals just do not mix in Africa.
Sure.
Our animals kill you. The second thing is mining. Underneath all these wilderness areas is huge wealth in terms of gold, diamonds, platinum, cobalt, all these new things that lithium, all that jazz. So mining and wildlife don't mix. There's no space for wildlife. The environment gets completely destroyed. There's large scale agriculture that can happen. We all know it's not good for wildlife. There is the option for photographic safaris, but hunting areas are not suitable for photographic safaris. All our major national parks are suitable for, and that's why they became national parks.
Right.
Is because they are suitable for visitors to go and have a great time and look at the animals
for that specifically.
Exactly. And no, well, they're not developed. They were just created by God like that. They're like in Eden. Where it's very nice for the animals to be and very nice for the people. It's comfortable.
When I say created, there's dirt roads.
And
areas where you can drive around.
Camps, and it's open, and it's lovely. The wilderness areas that surround
the photographic
the national parks, the photographic national parks. Now that's tough land. That's no one wants to go there for drive around on a vehicle and take pictures of the animals, because there's biting flies. It's a lot of hills, the long grass. You can go on and on about why you don't want to go there. But fortunately for us in Africa, people who want to go there are hunters, because they want to go and walk through the mountains and be bitten by flies. And hunters are that type where they like to test themselves physically and emotionally and challenge themselves and hunt. It's the old thing, like back in the caveman days. Those cavemen went out there and they had a great time, going out with their spears and hunting the lands and maybe being attacked by something, and that was cool for them. And it's the same about hunters. That's what hunters enjoy to do. So what people don't realize is those areas around the national parks are huge, vast. And that's where the majority of our wilderness lies, is in those, what we call them, marginal areas, because they're not good enough for photographics and everything, but they are good enough for hunting. So that we call them marginal areas. So without the hunters coming and paying to hunt in the marginal areas, if that is taken away, the government will use that land to make money somehow. And hunting makes a lot of money for the government and for the communities and all that. It's kind of like an incentive to keep it a wildlife area.
Which is an amazing thing. The first time that I went and hunted with you, you knew the story, but the reality of it is you take a village that's in one of these marginal areas, for example, And if the buffalo comes in or a hyena comes in and steals a goat or a cow, what do the villagers want to do? They want to kill that animal.
Yeah.
100%. They want to be done. You just took my stuff.
Yeah.
Or they go after a child or something like that. That's a problem.
Elephants are a big one as well.
And elephants are a big one. So what does the village want to do? Well, the village wants to exterminate it.
Yes.
Where the African people live in the bush, if there's an animal and there's no value put on that animal that comes back to the community, the animal dies.
They'll kill it, yeah.
And
eat it.
indiscriminately, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Doesn't matter. If there's 7 of them there, they'll kill them all.
Yeah.
And part of it's because that's where they live and they need it, right? They need to do that. Now, a hunter comes in and employs people from the village, employs the camp staff, puts a value on that animal.
Yeah, because they get a piece of the proceeds.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because the government gets a piece of that animal, the community gets a piece of that animal, the community gets some of the meat of that animal.
A piece. That's a good way to put it, because
It is.
they get a literal piece of it, like the protein, and they get a piece of the financial pie.
Yeah. But now all of a sudden there's a value. So now somebody's looking at it saying, hey, listen.
Yeah, don't kill the animals.
Don't be killing
That's
that
where we're
thing.
getting our money from.
That's where we're getting our money and our protein and our
Exactly.
stuff. So if that goes away, then everybody would say, well, then the environment would be better if there weren't hunters. And realistically, even though it's so difficult to understand, that's not the case.
No, because what people don't realize is, so like we explained, we've got the national park in the middle. Around that, we've got the marginal areas. And around that, we've got the communities.
Yes.
And those communities, there's no animals in there.
No.
Zero. There used to be, but there's none anymore.
Right.
Because the people eat animals. And
They don't have
especially in
grocery store
Africa.
out
And
there.
the population is growing.
Yes.
Remarkably growing. And it ain't slowing down anytime soon. So there's this huge pressure on the marginal areas from the village people, the communities. And, it's not like the States where you can go out and get a job on every corner. Africa is a different ball game.
Yeah.
A lot of people just, live off the fields that they grow or whatever. That's why every time we have a drought, we know the animals are going to get hammered, because people just start pouring in to poach animals so that they can sell them and make a living. So it becomes a problem. So it's like, we call it the fried egg, well, I like to call it the fried egg. The yolk is the national parks, so delicious and and protein filled of animals. And then the marginal areas is the whites, which is there's enough animals for hunting and sustainable, and it can keep it going and make money every year, and it's a great thing for everybody. And then outside of that, there's no more anything. It's just people and the troubles that people bring with them. So at the moment, and the vast majority of our land that is wildlife land is marginal areas. That's why hunting is so vital, because look at Kenya, they stopped hunting back in the day, and they will never say this out in the open, but it was terrible for them. They pleased the world, and they pleased the anti-hunting, and they got a lot of money from different things and whatever, but they lost the majority of their wilderness. And now they've got the population, the villages, right on the yoke, right on the national parks. Amboseli National Park. I mean, what a beautiful place with huge elephants. They have the biggest problem. I mean, those elephants, they literally, whereas back in the day, those elephants could have gone out of the yolk and into the white of the egg, which is into the marginal areas, and had a great time and been in the preservation. That now is just fields of maize and whatever. And those elephants can't resist. Elephants, they know they're not supposed, well, they know it's like dangerous to go out there, because they get spears thrown at them, and they get shot, and they get whatever by these people protecting their fields. But they still go, because they can go they can go get a pumpkin, a whole field of pumpkins. They can go get watermelons, they can go with whatever. So now you've got that problem where there's no more egg white. It's just the yolk and like the people who are...
It's such a great analogy. I mean, because you think about it, when I was in Kenya, we were in the Nagang Valley, Great Rift Valley, next to Nagang, and there was a water hole, and there was some tribal Maasai there. And we saw some baboons, and we saw some giraffe, and we saw some things, and we went for a walk one day. We went up to the top of this hill, and there's this guy, they called him Joe. His name was not Joe, or John. And John was a guy who lived there his whole life, and he had this double-ended spear. And I literally thought it was like a movie from the 60s. I'm like, this guy John's taking us up the hill with a spear? That seems weird. And then John starts talking, but he's not talking, he's talking in Swahili. So there's somebody there that's translating. And when he turned somewhere between 12 and 15, the age of Majeshi, they would send him out for a year to go live on his own, right? But before that, he would take the cows and the goats out to graze, and then he would bring them back home as like an 8, 9, 10-year-old. And where he earned his stripes was there was a leopard when he was a child that was going after the cows that he was going out with. And he threw a spear at the leopard and killed the leopard to save his like sheep or cows. And then the rest of the day, he had the leopard on his shoulders. And then when he came in at night and brought the cows in, he brought the leopard in with him. Wow. And I'm sitting there going, there's no way on God's green earth there's any 12 or 15-year-old in America that is hiking by themselves, killing a leopard with a spear, putting it on his shoulder, and then coming home and being like, hey, Mom and Dad, this thing came after us, so I got it. And the village is like, oh, good job.
Yeah, well done.
Well done.
Yeah.
But there's no fanfare. It's just like, no. It's like, wow.
You'd be lucky if you got a well done. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, well done for doing your job.
Yeah, exactly. And that's when you realize it was so different. And then when we had the conversations with the missionaries there, they're saying, well, there's not a lot of wildlife here. The only wildlife you have is a few giraffe. You have the occasional leopard. You have some baboons and monkeys. But anything else that's big is gone. And it was gone because the villagers would see an impala and they'd be like, that's pretty tasty.
Yeah. 100%. It's for free as well.
And it's free, exactly.
You don't have to buy it.
And they felt like, well, it's our land, and that's whatever they believed in, whatever God or whatever they believed in, said, well, that's ours.
Yeah.
So we're able to do that. Yeah. But there's no licenses. There's no, well, you can only take 3 or 4. But in the hunting community, it's managed. Right?
Yeah. Well, the hunting quota is managed. Yeah. That's the difference between hunting and poaching, really. I mean, hunting, first of all, is paid for, and it's regulated, whereas poaching is not paid for and it's not regulated. So, I mean, one is sustainable, one is not. Yeah. They're two very different things.
So tell me about the anti-poaching effort. How many of these guys? So I've met 3 different. I've hunted in 3 different areas with you, and they're 3 very different areas, which we'll talk about. But each one of them has their own kind of anti-poaching units. In other words, there's individuals who are hired, and their focus is to prevent people from taking animals in these marginal areas, right? From killing and taking those animals and then selling them for profit, correct?
Yes. Yeah, basically that's exactly what they do. They have to go out. I mean, a lot of these areas are massive, as you know.
Huge.
14 days, you don't even get to nearly half of it. But you got to stop the people from coming into the egg white and eating the egg white, basically. So, because if you let that go on too much, now your hunting becomes unsustainable.
Right.
So 1, you lose your business, and 2, you lose your area. And it's happened. Where guys don't do the anti-poaching properly. The villagers come in, they clean it up of game, and then it's no longer viable as a hunting area.
Right.
So the hunting operator leaves, and then it's just a free-for-all. Then the villagers just go to town. Then they cut all the timber, they eat all the birds, they eat all the thing, and then they turn it into fields.
Right.
And now you've lost that wilderness, because once the people are there, you can't take them out.
No.
Because now it becomes politically... it becomes a thing. Much easier just to keep them out from the beginning.
Yeah.
And it's a man versus wild situation. Yeah. There's nothing pretty about it. I mean, anti-poaching is one of the hardest things you can do. I mean, there's nothing pretty about it. I've done it myself. Lots of other people have done it. It's not glorious. It's hard work. It's never ending. It's not like you can do such a good job this year and you don't have to do it next year. You got to keep doing it. They just keep coming. So yeah, they go out and they remove all these wire traps and snares, and because people will set like long lines of them.
And there's piles of them.
Piles. I mean, like a snare line. One snare can catch an animal, but there'll be 200 snares in a snare line. And then once the impala gets caught in there, often the owners of these snares, they don't come back for a couple of days because they know coming back is also dangerous. They might get caught by the anti-poaching guys. So if an impala gets caught in there and dies, or it starts wah, 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 what the first thing going to come is the predators, the lions, the leopards. They then get caught in snares. When they all start rotting, more predators come because they smell the rotting meat. They want to come and eat. And it's just like, it's sad sometimes when you get to a snare line and there's just loads of animals caught in there, from lion to impala to kudu to hyenas, leopard.
But in most of, we'll talk about South Africa in a second, but in most of those areas, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Namibia, Botswana, Zambia, Tanzania, those folk, the anti-poaching is there. It's done by the government or by the folks who have that area, right?
Yes,
like they're paying the
pretty much both.
Are trying to make sure it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Those folks get prosecuted. They take those snares and they put them in fires so that they break, right? They're not hardened. They do what they can to make it not, they're trying to protect the wildlife.
That's
100%. They're trying to
protect because that's also your business, It
is.
You got to protect 100%. Your business. You got to protect your piece of land.
Well, and people don't understand that. They think, well, hunters just go out and indiscriminately kill. It's like, well, if they went out and indiscriminately killed, then they wouldn't be there for the next generation.
Well, not even for the next generation. Your next hunting is going to look pretty dismal when you've shot all your animals this year.
Right.
Yeah.
So and
anyway, you can't because the government regulates what you can and can't shoot. So.
Right. And it's just like farming. So, I do a lot of work with agricultural businesses. And people say, well, farmers are ruining the land. It's like there's nobody who cares more about the land than farmers.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Yeah.
They want to make sure that land is turned over for generations can use it to farm. They think that, well, they're ruining the land by planting corn and putting down nitrogen. It's like, no.
Well, what are you going to eat if the farmers don't farm?
I don't know.
Yeah, that's a silly argument, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, farmers need to farm. Otherwise, we all go hungry, I'm afraid. Yeah. There's too many humans on the world now, and not everyone knows how to grow things,
No, not a lot of people do. Well, here's the other thing. The other thing is like, well, I do a little garden out back, or I have a little hydroponics, and you grow a little like plant of tomatoes or peppers. Well, you can't. That's great. That's going to feed you for 1 or 2 meals. It's not going to feed you every day for 365 days.
No. I pride myself in being a bit of a gardener, but I don't make enough food to feed myself full time.
No, absolutely not.
There's seasons and you can't be farming. You can't be. I mean, unless you're a farmer, it's difficult to spend all your time growing things because you got to make money and you got to do other things.
All right, so let's talk about some fun stuff. So I met you 3 years ago, ish. I get your YouTube channel. I'm watching the show. I'm like, I love this guy. I want to meet this guy. I send you a note on YouTube.
Was it on YouTube first?
I think so. And I sent this thing, and I'm like, Andy, my name is Mark. I'd love to hunt with you sometime. 100% expecting, 99% expecting, never going to get a call back from this guy. Never going to get an email back. And literally 24 hours later, you send me this note that says, Mark, I'd like to do that. Would you be willing to get on WhatsApp? And we went back and forth. And then all of a sudden, if you have the ability, if you're really serious, and you download something like WhatsApp, you can have a phone conversation, and oh my gosh, you can get so much more done.
Yes.
Than just going back and forth with texts
or
and
emails
or whatever
for
else.
Sure.
So you and I start, and I've said in the past, I'm kind of like a closet hunter. I love being outdoors. I love golfing. I love hunting. I love woodworking. My family loves to ski. But I don't talk a lot about the hunting piece because half of the folks that I work with are interested or okay with it, and the other half are not so interested. And not okay.
You can lose friends,
Yeah.
People be like, you're a hunter, evil man.
Yeah, but it's not that way. And the people that I'm with
not.
around those industries, I just really enjoy being around, generally speaking.
Well, it's your kind of people, really. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, I always think, hunters are a type of human.
Yeah.
So either you are or you aren't, you know what I mean? God gave you that. No one else. You didn't choose it.
Right.
It's funny. Like, I mean, even your kids, they don't hunt much, do they?
No, not really.
No, but I saw in one of your son's bedrooms when I was at your house, he's got a stick there. He's got 2 sticks. That immediately tells me he has some sort of outdoor interest.
They love hiking. They love being outdoors.
I mean, if you pick up a stick, that is immediate. That's your connection with nature coming through.
Yeah. Yeah.
And some people are and some people aren't. Some people won't pick up sticks.
No. No, or rocks. Or
it's a sign of an outdoor enthusiast.
And I don't know if later in life they may not want to do it. I don't know. Like life's different now.
Yeah, never know.
Yeah.
You never know unless you go.
Right. So I say to you, Andy, I think I want to do it. And you have this booking agency side of you that we've talked about. Like, you have all this experience. You've been to so many of these countries. You've been to a lot of these areas. So I put my faith in you, not knowing anything about Africa other than what I can research, to say I'd like to bring my wife and I'd like to visit some places, and then I'd like to hunt for a little while. And your question always back is, well, what do you want to do? You know, and I'm like, I don't know what I want to do. I think I just want to go to Africa.
I know. I always seem to expect people to know what they want to do, but often they have no idea what they want to do.
So that's part of where you are. And I've learned over time that there's a couple of different types of areas. There's the conservancies, there's these like communal campfire areas, and there's these national parks as the free range hunting goes.
Yeah.
And then there's areas where there's farms or fenced areas where it's a business as well. You and I have made this decision that, or at least I have, that I want to do the wildlife rather than the fence. Not that there's a place for that, and it still brings dollars and all of those things there, and there's still some conservation effort that goes there. But we wanted to stay there, and over the past couple of years, we've actually hunted in each one, right? We've done a conservancy,
Yes.
we've done a campfire area, and we've done a national park.
Yes.
So tell me about your process. If John Smith calls and says, I'd like to go to Africa and I've never been, what do you do?
Well, one of my first calls is, would you like your wife to come with? Because that can determine, like on your first hunt, you mentioned that your wife Amy is going to come along.
Yeah.
And so then that immediately tells me we need to be a little more comfortable. We need to see a little more game, and we need to be somewhere where both parties, yourself and your wife, are going to enjoy. There's going to be enough of a challenge of the hunting for you because that's what you're after, but there's enough of the beauty and scenery and all that to cater.
Because Amy's not a hunter.
No, she's not a hunter. But I think she learned on that safari that she really likes being out there and walking around and seeing all the animals and the excitement. She even feels the excitement, you know.
Yes.
So that is often my first call. Also, another question I like to ask is like, how old are you? Because generally that will tell you how fit somebody is.
So it's not necessarily that if you're 60 or 30, but what you're trying to find out is, everybody thinks going to Africa is you drive around, you see something, you shoot it off of the back of the truck, they throw it in the back and you move on. But in a wildlife area, that's not it. I mean, especially if you're going after species like buffalo or elephant or something like.
But there's
some effort.
There's some effort for sure. I mean, places that you and I have gone to, you have to put in effort. But I knew that from you. You know, I knew that from asking you questions. That is what I guessed you would like. But there is such a variety of experiences that one can have in Africa, because there is places where you can go and only have to walk 100 yards to shoot your elephant, and anyone can do that. Really, I mean, you can be pushed in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
You know. But is that the experience you're after?
Right.
And I do try and. I didn't realize this, but I have come to realize that I do pride myself a lot in getting the best experience for the person.
Right.
The other thing you gotta, and maybe, you know, sometimes I lose sleep over it. You know, like get an email from someone and I don't reply it immediately because I like to think about it and think about what they've thought about. And sometimes I find myself in the middle of the night waking up because I can't sleep because I'm trying to figure out where's going to be the best place for this person. Whereas if I had to think about it, I could send them anywhere they're going to have a good time. Do you know what I mean? But I want them to have the best time. So I think that's just...
You care about them.
Well, yes. Yeah. I mean, it's not even... I don't even know the person.
Yeah.
You know, I just know his name is Jerry Flanagan. And... but, you know, I want Jerry to have the best time.
Yeah.
So it's sometimes a bit... complicating in my own head because I stress so much about getting the perfect experience. But that's also, I think, why people, you know, people might have even hunted other places. Once they come and hunt with me or on an experience that I offer, and they often keep coming back. Yeah, or you get the other thing where the first hunt I've showed them, they've had such a good time with whoever I've put them with, that they don't leave that person.
They just go back
No,
there.
yeah, so they've had such a good time because I made such a good choice that I get left out of the picture for the next 3 hunts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then, 3 years later, they come to me and they're like, "Hey, Andy, hey, man, geez, nice to see you again. You know, I'm looking to go to my next cool place."
Yeah.
I'm like, but you just because you forgot about me for 3 years, you know what I mean? Like, that's not cool.
Well, it's an interesting thing, right? Because the person who reaches out to you wants to get that experience, wants that personality, wants the person that cares to put him with you. And because you're a booking agent, you have a commission, you get paid to do that.
Yeah.
With that said, you have a business, right? Yes, you have a TV show. Yes, you can film a video, but the booking agent is something there. So if that person then goes ahead and says, "Thank you for introducing me to Jack,"
Yeah.
and then they go to Jack,
Yeah.
then Andy gets cut out.
Andy
little
gets
bit there.
jack shit.
Yeah, and like you start.
Excuse the pun.
But it's one of those things that it's good for people to understand and know. Whereas even if you were going to go back to Jack, if you went through Andy, then all of a sudden you're there.
Yeah, it's not going to cost you anymore, but
No, it's the
Andy
same.
gets a commission, and Andy's going to look after you next time you come back to him.
Yes. Right.
Like I feel, I don't know what it is, but like when someone leaves you out of the equation like that, when they next come round, it crosses my mind, do I even want to help this guy?
Right.
Because he showed me very little thanks.
You will because you're a professional.
Yeah, I will, but
Yeah.
it's just irritating.
But sometimes it's just letting people know that.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's hard to let people know. Often I just like, okay, carry on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm not going to be the guy that, you didn't come through me. But yeah, no, it definitely. It's frustrating, isn't it? You know, it's like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of something in the first world. I suppose it's just business, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the other part is that you're involved with so much of the other stuff, right? You can help get people involved with the travel agent. You can help them get to transfer inside countries, right? If you want to take a charter plane or if you want to take a bus or if you want to, you're helping with that whole experience. And then if people are trying to get specific species, you're putting them in places where they have the most opportunity to get the trophy quality. If they're on a budget, you're trying to match their budget, the type of experience that they want. Do they want to engage with the locals? Do they not want to engage with the locals?
Yeah.
Right?
I try and get it down to the T. I try and get that exactly the experience that I think they're after.
Yeah.
I really do try and get it down to the T. Really, I do. I mean, I go out of my way to make sure that people have that experience. I've had clients who have come and they've booked their first hunt through me. They come to me and said, "Hey, I want to do this and do this." And I say, "This is where you need to go." And then they go there and they have the perfect experience. And they are so happy that they leave me out the next time. So then they go to now on the next hunt with that same guy I put them with. But now that guy I put them with thinks they're in his pocket.
Yes.
So now he'll take them to where he's going to make the most money, not where they're going to have the best time, where he's going to make the most money or whatever. And then they come back to me again and say, "But Andy, our second trip wasn't like." I said, "I didn't even know you went on a second trip." And they're like, "Yeah, but we went with Yanni."
Yeah.
Oh, shit, I said her name. I probably shouldn't say that. But then, and they say,
Bleep that out.
Yeah.
Bleep that out, Levi.
Yeah.
Bleep that out. Bleep out the name.
Yeah, so... And then they say, "No, but we went with the same guy that you put us with." I was like, "Yeah, but I was in charge of the first one.
Yes.
He was in charge of the second one."
Yeah.
And therein lies the difference.
Yeah. Because you want somebody looking out for your best interest. And that's the difference. But not that the the outfitter or the professional hunter doesn't care about you. But if you have somebody who's sitting there saying, "My job, what I get paid to do is 100%. Put you in the position to make it the best." Because everybody thinks theirs is the
My
best.
interest lies with the client.
100%.
Not with the outfitter.
Right.
There's a lot of outfitters out there.
Yes.
I can change outfitter quickly, no problem.
Right.
The client is where my interest lies. So I want what's good for him. So even when we're in camp and the outfitter says, "We've got this animal available for the client."
Yes.
Then I say, "Well, what is the deal?"
Well, because you know.
Yeah, and I'd say it in front of the
ask.
client, everything. What is the deal with this leopard or this whatever that's available? Because I know what's fair and what's not fair. If I'm not there, he's obviously going to try and make as much money out of you as possible, right? That's business. That's what people do. When you try and sell something to someone, You want to sell it for as much as you can sell it for, right?
It's a harsh reality, isn't it?
That is the reality of business. I mean, everyone's trying to make as much money as they possibly can. So when I'm there, I can say, that is not fair. Don't take that offer that he just offered you. He's playing monkey tricks.
Yeah.
You know? And I can say, if he gives you a fair offer, I say, that's a fair offer. Would you like to accept?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, and there's so much stress that people don't understand. So the hunter feels stress, but the booking agent, the PH, if you promise somebody a trophy buffalo and you have a 10-day hunt and you're on day 9 and you haven't gotten a buffalo and you see a buffalo, that hunter's going to be like, that's a great buffalo. Even if it's not a great buffalo, it's like, we gotta get that buffalo, because I don't want this guy leaving saying, well, I went with this guy and we hunted for 9 days and didn't get anything.
Yeah, but in my opinion, like, you're better off leaving the hunt without an animal than leaving with a poof animal. Because a substandard animal, because that substandard animal, you have to look at for the rest of your life on your wall.
Well, and the other part, honestly, at least for me, is when we go hunting, whether I go out in the West in Wyoming or Utah or Nevada, excuse me, or I go to Africa, is I want to hunt mature animals. I would love to hunt animals that are at or past their prime. They've already done their breeding. They've passed their genetics on.
For sure.
And sometimes those are the biggest trophies, and sometimes they're not the biggest
No,
trophies.
But
the reality is, I feel like you're caring for the species rather than just taking a female or a young male or something because it's there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and when I talk about shooting a substandard animal, mostly what I mean by that is shooting a sub-age animal. Because for me, the older animals are the better trophies anyway.
Yes.
If you can get a super old one that's super big, then great, that's fabulous. But, come day 9 of the hunt and you see a nice, mature, old bull, I'd say take it.
Yeah.
But don't take even a big young one. Like,
well, some people are so into the. It depends what's important to them, right? Because a lot of the younger, big, mature, let's say buffalo, some of them are really big and wide, but they're still young and they haven't finished breeding.
Embarrassing.
And you don't really want to take them yet until they're fully hardened and they're fully kind of out of the herd, and because that's what's best for the herd. So you can come back year after year after year,
yes,
and continue to have options there.
Quite right.
Yeah.
Quite right. I mean, yeah, I feel sorry for people, especially with social media now. The guys will post this huge buffalo so wide, but it's soft. It's young. It's like 5 years old. You're like, ish.
Well, the other thing that's interesting, and you and I went on our second hunt, and I struggled a little bit with that crocodile. And you had suggested it to me, and I wasn't sure about it. And now that I've done it, I'd probably do another one. But it didn't go perfectly, right? And you'll see, for those who are interested, you'll see on the TV show that it was like strike 1, strike 2, and then we got to 3, and it was like 3, lucky 3, third strike's a lucky, like, third time's a charm, or 3 strikes and you're out, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of those things on Instagram and YouTube, they don't show that.
No.
They don't show. They just think that, well, you go over there and everybody makes the perfect shot, and the thing just dies and it's fine. But
that's not how it goes.
Not easy all the time.
Yeah. More often than not, it's always. I mean, most safaris you're going to have something that goes a little bit pitong, and I've often noticed when the client, not that this is what you did, but when the client starts thinking that he's a sniper. Oh, 1 or 2 days it's coming. And it happens a lot.
Because you can get overconfident there pretty quickly.
Yeah, and it's funny because, like, and I actually do it to people sometimes, I'll admit. Like, when they're shooting well and the chest starts to get big, I'll start saying, you're a sniper. And now they start believing they're a sniper. And then they bog it. And I'm like,
see?
Gotcha. Yeah. Don't get clever, my friend, because it's not good for you. So you chop them down quietly, without chopping them down. But it happens. I mean, I'm not a good shot. I mean, what I've noticed is I am good under pressure. When something is running at me or whatever, I don't run. I don't feel frightened. I'm good under those.
Be in the moment.
I can be in that moment and I can wait to the last minute. I'm brave like that. But to shoot something at 150 yards, oh, I'm a gibbering wreck. Gibbering wreck.
Yeah.
Because it's like, and I'm seeing every little movement. I'm like, oh my gosh, if I pulled the trigger there, I was going to be off.
So funny.
So yeah, I you know, like, I do quite a lot of this problem animal stuff, and I miss a lot. It happens, you know. I'm definitely no sniper, that's for sure. But I know, you know,
Yeah.
it's a part of hunting. It's a part of the challenge.
That's
shooting
part of the
straight.
deal. That's the stories.
Yeah,
stories
shooting straight is hard. That's one thing. It's very difficult to explain on the video because, you know, it's difficult to see exactly what you're not seeing. The hunt is not filmed through the scope of the client.
Well, and people often comment, they're like, oh, I watched it, and it's like, I can't believe you missed, or you hit it high, or you hit it back.
Yeah.
It's like, well, sometimes it's like 2 or 3 seconds where they put up some sticks, and guys in the U.S. aren't used to like shooting off a stick.
100%.
And then you have your gun, or I've borrowed weapons every time that I've gone.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have a split second because you don't even know what you have. You aim at different places on African animals. People in the U.S. maybe don't know that, but the heart is forward and lower on almost all of that game. And in the U.S., you're always center mass, you know, right behind the shoulder. And if you hit center mass behind the shoulder on a buffalo, that thing's going to run 5 miles.
Yeah, you're gone. You might not even see that thing again.
I know, which is interesting. So you get a lot of like armchair quarterbacks saying, "Oh, I can't believe you missed it."
Plenty of those.
Yeah, it's like, well, you lay down where you just put your knee in some red ants. It's 110 degrees.
Your heart is pounding. Shooting through the brush.
Yeah, and this thing comes out that you've never seen before, and maybe you jerk the trigger. Like it just happens.
Yeah. Or you just misjudge where's what.
Yeah.
Or the guy who provided your gun didn't provide a good one.
Or you have different...
Which I did to you.
Yeah, details.
Yeah. Well, to your own defense, though, because I know if when that episode comes up, people are going, this guy can't shoot. Yeah. But a lot of it was the problem with the weapon was shooting all over the place. Not that we knew it at the time, but we later figured that out.
Yeah.
Hence, we changed the gun, and then we got it done, yeah.
Well...
part of the fun, though. We wouldn't have had such a cool story if I'd provided a good gun for you. Hey?
And it was the hardest, one of the hardest hunts I've ever been on, but it was the most memorable one by far.
Yeah. But you're a sucker for punishment like that. You like to suffer a little bit.
Like I don't want to, but then I do.
Yeah.
You know, like I went on this elk hunt with a young guy, and his name was Dalton as well, and we were all excited to go out and hunt elk with a bow. And we went out for 7, 8, 9 days and just got our butts kicked. Just, you know, it was hot and we were, you know, doing walks and seeing elk, and it wasn't going to happen. And everybody feels so bad, but it's like, and when I left, I'm like, oh, I'm never going back there. And then as soon as I land in Syracuse, I'm like, I wonder when I'm going back to hunt elk in those mountains again.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know, maybe it's like childbirth. No one, you know, the pain of childbirth is real, and then people have more than one kid. So obviously, you know, something's there. Time
heals all wounds.
A little bit. Yeah. All right. Tell me one more thing here before we wrap up so people understand. If I'm going with you to hunt, tell me the difference between like a conservancy, you know, a campfire communal area, and a national park. I can hunt in either one of those threes, and they're kind of different experiences, right?
Yes, they are all different experiences. So conservancy is a generally privately owned, big land.
Like 1 million acres.
Yeah, like 1 million acres. But generally, conservancies do have a perimeter fence. But inside that area, there is, say, 20 concessions. So maybe 6 of them might have some fence.
Yeah.
But a lot of the fences are also broken down. A lot of these conservancies were formed a long time ago, and the fences have since derailed as such.
Yeah.
So, and then some of the conservancies will have a border, which is like a river.
Right.
That, you know, might stop plains game and things, but elephants and lions and whatever, and buffalo cross and whatever, in and out. So generally, it's they're big areas. They're normally very well managed. Normally, a lot of good anti-poaching. Your conservancy is where you're going to find most of your plains game animals.
So you like the one that you and I hunted, the Save. When you get in there, we flew in, and from the minute you got on the back of the truck, to camp, and then the minute out, you're seeing game almost all the time.
Lots of game.
And part of that is because it's a
privately
million
owned,
acres.
yeah.
It's privately owned. There's 15, 18, 20 owners. They have massive anti-poaching.
Yep. And they have rhinos as well.
Yes.
Generally, conservancies are full of rhinos, so
Yep.
you have like soldier anti-poaching.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the reality of it is very strict quotas, so they know that year after year there's going to be a population inside there. So
Yes.
this isn't a 5,000 acre fence. This is a 1 million acre
Yes.
conservancy.
Yes. Conservancies often deal with overpopulation of animals.
That's one of their challenges.
Yes, because like elephants and whatever, the government still controls what quota you get.
Yes.
Which is not always correct, because you need to manage that space, because that space it's basically a big yoke. It's not really, there's not much white in there. It's more like a pristine place.
Right.
But there's communities surrounding everywhere. So the animals can't really, they do go out, but there's a lot of human wildlife conflict. So
they
the
get
animals,
pushed back.
they will not push back. They want to stay in.
Yes.
So elephants breed like crazy, but the government will say, oh, okay, you can shoot 2 elephant bulls per concession. So you're shooting 40 elephant bulls, but there's a population of 3,000 elephants, and they are breeding another 1,000 every year. They just
The numbers don't add up.
Oh, and it just keeps, like, what's it called when it gets bigger and bigger? Exponential growth. It's crazy.
And people don't understand that, because people have said to me, well, Mark, if you go over there, you're ever going to shoot an elephant? And I'm honest. I'm like, I don't know. I'm not sure. It's not like my top list. But now that I've been to Africa 3 times on hunting safaris, I understand that the conservation story isn't we're running out of elephants in Africa. I mean, in Zimbabwe and Botswana, there's almost too many elephants. They just knock down forests, like entire forests.
Yeah. The problem is when the elephants get too much, they destroy the habitat for the rest of the animals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got this conservancy.
Yeah, so that's the conservancy. Private land, sometimes fenced.
Yeah.
Lots of game.
Yes.
And then you get, so the other end of the spectrum now is campfire areas. So these are areas which are owned by the indigenous landowners. So basically it's controlled by the chiefs and the villages and all that jazz.
Yep.
These areas you're going to hunt a lot harder.
Yep.
A lot harder hunting, a lot less game.
Yep.
These areas you're more likely to find animals that have snares on them. Also very big areas. And now when you're driving through here, you're going to see villages of people. You're going to see
people fishing, people
cows,
going for water. You're going to see cows and goats.
Exactly.
And thatched roof houses.
Yes. Yeah. And you're going to hunt a lot harder. You're going to say if you had a list of 10 animals, you might not get all 10. Probably definitely not going to get all 10 animals.
Yeah.
Whereas on a conservancy, you might get all 10 animals.
Yeah.
But also very important for conservation, these areas.
Well, those communities,
they're
right?
big areas, yeah.
Because those outfitters are bidding for the right to hunt that area.
Yeah.
So they're giving it to the government.
And building clinics and all that stuff.
And they're building water holes, and they're donating cars, and they're giving things to the school, and the protein is going back to the nearest village.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a little harder
to operate.
But there's still a huge conservation effort.
Massive.
And it's absolutely directly affecting the villagers around there.
Yes, 100%.
And then you've got
those will be the areas that if they do evaporate into village land, those are the ones that go first.
Right. No doubt.
Yeah. Constant battle is to keep the people from eating the last pockets of wilderness areas in there, because that is their land. So if they want to turn it into farmland, they can.
Right.
So now you've got to convince them not to.
Right. So it has to make it worth their while.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep. And then you get the government areas.
Yep. National park area.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So for
national
us,
park.
like where we live in New York, it'd be like hunting the Adirondacks, big, huge national park. Park that's part of the state.
Yeah. So it's not as a national park as such. It's like national park game management areas. So they set aside for hunting and fishing and whatever. They set aside for the government to make money off the natural resources, which is the game and the fish and the whatever. So these areas now, you're not going to find local people inside. There's no local people inside. They're not allowed to cross that boundary.
Yeah.
This is wildlife land.
Yeah.
But of course they
do.
Yeah, they come to poach.
Yeah.
So also you still have to do your anti-poaching. I'd say these areas are nice, and you're not going to see people. Some clients that come hunting, they say, I don't want to see people on my hunt. I want to be in the wilderness.
And that's where you want to go.
And that's where you want to go.
Yeah. And the borders, just to be clear, they're not fenced. It's like a road or a river or a mountain.
Yes, yeah. That borders the next concession.
Yes.
And then that goes for 500,000 miles, and then the next guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, or acres, sorry, not miles. But yeah, that's how that works. And yeah, those areas, I suppose the biggest, in terms of hunting out of them, the biggest difficulty there is when you have a campfire area, it's a little bit easier to control your quota because you're dealing with the chief and the government. Whereas when you're in these areas, you're only dealing with the government. So if you say to the government, you've given me 100 buffalo here, I don't think we can hunt 100 buffalo. We should be hunting 25 buffalo maybe. They do have the right to turn around and say, no, you pay for 100 buffalo. So that's now you're like, well.
And if you pay for it, it's hard not to sell it.
Yes. Yeah. So that's where the problem
Even if
comes.
it's an unsustainable number.
That's where one of the difficult things come because, the government doesn't always know the best thing to do with the wildlife. Sometimes the people are sucking figures from somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, you gotta. That's the thing. About being a hunting operator. You need to be
a bit savvy about it all.
Yes, you do. I mean, and try not to be greedy.
Yeah.
Because we got to leave something for the future. I don't want the blood on your hands. Surely.
No. Yeah. Well, and the reality of it is, if you think about it, all those folks are becoming PHs or operators. The folks like you who are booking agents, and making shows and doing all those things, you want to do it for decades to come. So you're not out there saying, let's just make this whole thing happen for next year. You're saying, I want to do this in 2030 and 2040 and 2050.
Yeah.
So you're trying to make decisions that are sustainable.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I shudder to think, but I do think about it often, is like, how would it be if all the animals were gone, all the wilderness was gone? I mean, that would be a horrendous world to live in, I think. So yeah, if we can all try and play our part, then we might not let that happen.
Yeah, just expose people to it.
I think so. And then there's people that have a calling for it. I certainly have a calling for it. And I have since I was young. I've been looking after animals. I've been caring for animals. I've been interested in animals and whatever. And only as I'm getting older now have I realized that it is a calling. It is my thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been awesome.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you for having me in.
It's been so great.
And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for everything you've done for me. Meeting you 3 years ago, I actually remember I was in a hotel room and I think you phoned me or I phoned you or something. But I remember getting this phone call and speaking to this complete stranger, which is nothing out of the ordinary. But I remember getting off that phone call and being like, when something like hits you.
Yeah.
And then since then, we've gotten to know each other so well. We've become really good friends, and you've helped me a lot with my business, which I know you do for a lot of people. That's why you have your business Legacy, which is done so well and helps so many people make more money with their money and keep their money safe and help grow their money and their businesses and everything.
Yeah.
So you've certainly helped me a lot. I know I've come forward with my business in leaps and bounds. You've helped me organize everything and how to structure things, and you've just helped in so many ways. So yeah, looking forward to more years of you helping me.
Well, I am very thankful for meeting you and Carly and all the folks you've put us in touch with. And it's been such a great experience in our lives that we want to continue to do. So I'm excited about it. You and I are going to go to New Zealand together here in a couple of months.
Yeah, that's going to be cool.
I think that'll be a lot of fun.
Then Mozambique after that.
And then Mozambique in July, which will be amazing. Another country to kind of check off.
Going to there, hunting close to the swamps there, and then you're going to the beach, which is amazing. You're going to the island there. That's going to be awesome.
It'll just be so fun. And those are experiences that I just wouldn't have unless I had met you. So
I know where they are. So all I have to do is point you in the right direction.
That's cool. Well, if you haven't already, the website is TIA5FIVE.com. And you can get to the merchandise store. There's some cool T-shirts and hats and that type of stuff there. There's a link over to the YouTube channel. This is Africa, right?
That's it.
And the TV show airs on the Sportsman's channel January, February, March, I believe is the season. 13 episodes.
13 episodes, and then they repeat April, May, June.
Yes, which is cool, and you can find them on My Outdoor TV and obviously on the YouTube channel. You have a Patreon channel, which gets exclusive content, which is pretty cool.
The Patreons get it all.
They get everything. They get some of those things. You just started your own podcast, which is amazing. I've seen some of those. Those are so awesome where you're interviewing PHs, like really cool guys.
There's a lot of knowledge in there.
Ton of knowledge, just stories and that type of thing, if you like listening to it.
Yeah, the podcast is a must.
Yeah.
I do the podcast, but I listen to them like 5 times over.
Yeah.
Because there's so much information there to gather.
Yeah.
People are loving the podcast. Those are the Patreons already getting the podcast, but they are loving it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Loving it, yeah.
And then you come to the U.S. every year to go to the shows, and you're going to the Dallas Safari Club show here in a week or so. You're going to the Safari Club International show in a couple of weeks. And that's where you have the ability to connect with clients and potential clients and sponsors and all those types of things. So
yeah, super exciting. Awesome. We love the conventions.
Yeah.
It's like a wildebeest migration for hunters.
Exactly. It's such an awesome analogy, isn't it?
Yeah.
The fried egg and the wildebeest migration.
For hunters.
For hunters is the two things that we take out of this podcast. Yeah.
Awesome, buddy. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.
It's been awesome. Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks, man.
Pleasure. Thank you.